just your average everyday trucker, keeping it real. I'm your host, Chris Blodgett, and you're listening to Real Talk Tuesday. This week's topic is going to be life's most important things. This is episode 156. Hey guys, welcome back. As always, appreciate you being here. The inspiration for this week's topic of discussion is kind of inspired by kind of a conversation I had with my wife yesterday, actually. Because as you guys have, if you remember a couple episodes back, I talked about what happened to us, what we're currently dealing with, as far as like a moving company goes, the moving company horror stories. I believe it's that episode. So if you haven't listened to that, feel free to go back. But I was talking to my wife yesterday because we're still dealing with that crap. Where it's like over this past week, I have emailed the company. Actually, technically, Starline Van Lines. I've emailed them a couple times, and now I'm basically getting ghosted. Like I'm not hearing back from them at all. And so I told the wife that. She was like, "Yeah, I would just probably just message the Attorney General to let them know and tell them that obviously we want our stuff back. Obviously, we want to figure out what we have to do, whatever, and maybe file small claims." And I was like, "Yeah," because my mother-in-law, it's one of those situations where I kind of wish that she would go about things a little bit differently because she actually is in a position to actually help if she wanted to. And I understand why she's going about it the way she is too. It's one of those where like, well, I can't bail you out. Well, okay, I understand that, I get it. But her way of helping right now is basically just giving a lot of, I guess, comments, opinions, suggestions, stuff that I've already, a lot of stuff that I've already done. Like, oh, well, you need to be emailing them every day. You need to be, getting on the phone with them, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I have been, and basically, like, it got to a point where I'm arguing for documentation and proof as to what they're claiming as far as the dimensions and stuff of the truck they use. Because they're, like, when they're loading us up, the driver basically, when I was like, when it got to the point where basically they were like, yeah, this is all the space you've been allotted. I was like, but you're only loaded halfway. We were told we were getting a full 26-foot truck. Literally, the specific wording on the contract says 26-foot truck full of space. He claimed that the truck they brought was actually like 32 or 33 or something feet, and then it's actually, it's actually a lot bigger than, has a lot more cubic feet than the 26 footer, and that's why it's only halfway loaded, blah blah blah. And if we wanted to basically, because they hadn't touched the upstairs at all, like they literally hadn't even finished the downstairs, and so he's like, if we wanted to basically continue being loaded, continue loading our stuff in the truck to get moved, that they were gonna have to like do a new invoice, blah blah blah. Since we wanted the other half of the truck, it was gonna be basically a double. It was gonna go from like, it wasn't quite double, it was like 7,500 to like 12,400, so another extra $5,000. And of course, like, yeah, I signed and agreed, blah blah blah, while we were there. And then and then stuff that, it's one of those things where like the boss, he connected me with his boss or whatever, and I had said like, I don't have $4,000 or $5,000 to pay you tonight. I wasn't basically prepared to do $2,000 for pickup and $2,000 for delivery. Will you guys be willing to do $2,000 at pickup, and then we'll figure out the rest on delivery, because this is kind of unexpected? And he's like, oh yeah, yes sir, what the help you with that, sir, what the help you with that? Like, obviously we understand, we'll help you out, sir. So yes, $2,000 tonight, that'll be fine. Okay, thank you, sir, I really appreciate that. Like, you're adding $5,000 more to the invoice, but I'm still trying to be, respectful and whatever, because you attract more flies with honey instead of vinegar or whatever. So I was trying to be polite to the driver, to the loaders, and then to his boss whenever he connected with me on the phone or whatever. But then, of course, like, after it was all said and done, and then like the next day when we're loading a U-Haul ourselves to get the remaining like 30% of our stuff, they showed up with another truck, and they're like, oh, we're here to get the rest of the stuff. We're like, yeah, I couldn't reach you guys, so we got it. Like, we've already got a truck, whatever. We're just gonna go ahead and deal with it. We'll just see you guys there. All of a sudden, then it was, when they left, and they left, and then I got a phone call basically saying, oh, they want $4,000 down tonight before they'll even transport your stuff to Missouri. And I'm like, but his boss told me over the phone that he would be willing to do $2,000 at pickup and the rest on delivery. He's like, well, unfortunately, it's not negotiable, whatever. He negotiated with me last night, so I don't know what the hell. I was like, this is not a great way to do business. Like, usually your word is your bond, especially when you're making a deal with somebody. It's like, you don't just make a deal with somebody that, actually, never mind. I mean, we probably pissed them off because we didn't wait for them to get back with us. We were like, well, we have to get out of here. So it's like, but. So now our stuff's kind of been in limbo with him. I'm not sure where they have it. They have it stored somewhere, and it's like, the sad part about it is some of those boxes they have stored have dry goods in them, because like, we packed up our kitchen, and I think there's actually some prescription meds that got boxed up, because we were packing, basically planning for it to only be packed for like 2 days, and then getting unloaded up here in Missouri, but instead it's wherever they're at, So, but the Attorney General of Missouri has kind of got, been our middle person. I've been messaging them, and then they forward our concerns to the company, and then they reach out to me to forward whatever their response is, basically. And then I reply back to what they're claiming about me, like, well, Mr. Blodgett agreed to all this. And I was like, actually, I did not. I agreed to the initial estimate, and if you look on the invoice that they sent you, there's stuff that's crossed out and changed that they did not discuss with me, that I did not agree, I did not approve, I did not agree to. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm sure if we took them to court, we could argue that the increase in the bill and a lot of other, just basically the measurements of the truck and whatever are basically like, there's a lot of stuff that's questionable, and our amount should, basically the way me and my wife look at it is, we understand that it should have gone up a little bit, like 26 foot, and if we use the 30 foot, okay, that's 4 feet extra space, use the cubic feet, whatever, but not double the initial estimate, because that just, there's no way we had double what was initially estimated, because when I was dealing with the logistics lady at Starline Van Lines. Throw some names under the bus, you know, Amanda, you know, but I think her email, I think her name showed up as Tracy for some reason. I'm like, I don't know. Yes, if you listen to this, Amanda, just you know, picture that I'm giving you the middle finger, you know, 'cause she's another one that, like, as soon as I started questioning things and demanding like documentation and proof, all of a sudden I was getting ghosted and not getting, or I'd get an email basically saying contact customer service. They'll be the ones that handle this issue. Obviously, we want to resolve this. Blah blah blah. We're so sorry you had a bad experience, and you're not sorry enough to get them to reduce the amount they're trying to charge us, because they're still trying to charge us $12,400 for the total service. And we're like, no. Like, we didn't use double what we initially estimated. We used 4 extra feet. Your drivers broke stuff in our home. They were smoking in our home around my 17-year-old. You know, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be taken into account. And the fact that they made the deal with me over the phone that I would be able to pay $2,000 up front. You know, when they picked up. On top of the $3,500 they'd already gotten from me. You know, so for the inspiration for tonight's topic, I was chatting with the wife yesterday, and you know, we were talking about, because she randomly just out of the blue made a comment like, yeah man, it's like just the cost of having to replace everything is just it's just overwhelming. And I'm like, well, we're not gonna have to replace everything because we're gonna get it back. I was like, I don't know how we're gonna get it back. I'm not gonna accept any possible chance of us not getting our stuff back, because there's things that we packed up and that we shipped with those freaking movers, good old Planet Movers LLC and Starline Van Lines. You know, do not go with a broker, you guys. Like don't let them pressure you to making a deposit, making scheduling, because that's kind of what I was telling my buddy Goldberg, who you hear me talk to on our Raw Chat episodes, which I'll be another one after this episode. So stay tuned for this week's Raw Chat. And then I already got one for next week that actually has a couple of us on there. We have me, we have David Goldberg, we have his friend Janelle, and another friend of theirs, Miles, I believe. That, because you guys are going to get a kick out of that next week. Miles apparently had been merged into the call by Janelle, and I guess her connection wasn't the greatest. So me and Dave, we didn't catch it, and so like I reconnected on the call because we lost the call because of a connection issue, and then Dave called me back. The recording resumed, and like we're in the call, and I kept thinking I was hearing Miles, you know, because he's not a very big talker. So like, you know, he'd say something, and of course I'm thinking, it sounds like Miles is here. And then, but I didn't say anything for a little bit. And then all of a sudden Goldberg goes, when did Miles get here? I was wondering that myself, because I was like, I think I'm hearing Miles. I don't know. But so yeah, next week's Raw Chat is gonna be a little more can't think. I'm tired. Can't think of the word, but a little more interactive. A little more than just me and Goldberg on here, and you know. So, but chatting with my wife, she was like, "Oh, you know, it's gonna be like so overwhelming to replace everything." And I was like, "Don't worry, we're not gonna have to replace everything. You know, we're gonna get it back." I still don't. I told her that like I was leaning towards maybe trying to, you know, instead of just, hey, we're gonna file a suit with a small claims court or whatever, to come after them, because I was like, I'm afraid of doing that, and basically just coming after them for monetary recovery, but not getting our stuff back. I told her, I said, I'm more leaning towards trying to figure out a way to come up with the remaining $8,400 on top of the $3,500 that we paid. So basically, like, because they wanted 4,200 at pickup and 4,200 at delivery, versus the $2,000 at pickup and $2,000 at delivery that I initially, we'd actually like full on agreed to. That was all set up before the movers even showed up, and then they pulled the scam, what thing that the movers do, or that these scam movers do, that where they they start loading you, and then basically it's like, oh, you have a lot of stuff, sir. Yeah, you have a lot of stuff. Like it's actually double what the initial estimate was. We have to take you from like $5,000 to $12,000, and like we can get all your stuff in there, but yeah, it's a lot of stuff, sir. And that's like, I'd been awake all night, so of course, like at that point, I had trouble really fighting him. But looking back now, I'm like, yeah, there's things I would have done differently, but live and learn. Hindsight's 20/20. Even my daughter basically, she was like, yeah, Dad, like I look back and I go, well, when you were behind the truck fighting with him, I look back and kind of wish that I had kind of come over there to kind of back you up, and, argue with you, whatever. And I was like, well, it's not your fault, I was like, it's not either of our fault. Like, obviously, like, there's things that I wish I would have just told them to take our stuff off the truck. We'll just figure it out ourselves. Or, maybe told them just to close up what they had and just take off, and we would stick with the $2,000 and $2,000, and we would just figure out the remaining of the apartment ourselves and not have them load any additional stuff. I should have gone that route. Still would have been overpaying, probably, because I know we didn't get 26 feet like we're supposed to, but because technically the dimensions on a 30-foot truck still would be somewhat similar to a 26-foot. So the only difference would mainly be a little bit longer, but it's not going to be because I looked at the video that when I asked for documentation, but basically what they sent me was this freaking thing from an app on their iPhone where they walked from the front of the cargo area on the outside, and it measured from the front to the back, but it measured on the outside of the cargo area, like versus like if you're actually inside, you want to measure the inside dimensions, not like, well, how long is the truck box total? And it's like, yeah, but you're not using that full length because you got a wall right there, but it was like when you walked from the front to the back, it was like 30 feet and like a few inches, and then they measured from the top, like the roof to the bottom, and it was like 7 feet, I think. And so I was like, I'm curious. So I did a Google search, and it was like, I said, what is the average, or like how tall is the average like Penske truck in the cargo area? It said about 8 foot tall or whatever. So I was like, okay, so their quote longer truck is actually shorter. Has a shorter cargo area than one of your other rentals, that you get from them. So that's when the emails that I sent from the last week or whatever, I sent 3 emails basically saying, hey, so I was looking at the dimensions that you guys sent me. I need you to have the carrier send me the width of the truck, so that I'm just looking at all the information, trying to get my facts together, whatever, and of course, no response. Emailed again, hey, just following up, still need the width on that truck. I see that I have the height and the length, just need the width. No response. Emailed again, hey, still waiting, still trying to get in touch with you. That's when I told the wife about it. Like, yeah, I haven't heard back from them. They're kind of being ghosted. She's like, yeah, I would just message the Attorney General, let him know. I was like, say, all right, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Sorry, just going down the road here, on my way back to Kansas City and stuff from good old Coffeeville. And they got the road paved pretty good, but they got one of the construction trucks off on the shoulder a little bit. So it says pass with care. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll go buy them. Gotta do what we gotta do, I guess. But one of the things that my wife said, she said, it just doesn't feel like home because we don't have our stuff. And I was like, it feels like home to me. I was like, sorry you're not happy here. You don't have your stuff. She goes, no, I'm very happy here. I love the house. You know, it's just like I haven't really been able to. She goes, I haven't really been able to settle in 100% because, you know, like all my stuff is there, or whatever. I was like, I got you, you know. I was like, well, we're gonna get it back, you know. Don't worry, you know. So, this is one of those things. It's like the material stuff. Even though, yeah, there's sentimental stuff like a quilt that my mom made by hand when I graduated high school that literally has her like signature on it, like she, you know, made for my son Christopher Blodgett on such a date. You know, this year, blah blah blah. You know, of course, it has her little signature on it, whatever that she sewed in there. I would like to get that back, obviously. And of course, my wife has some family stuff, like heirloom stuff that I think came from her grandfather that she'd like to get back, or whatever. My youngest has pretty much all her art stuff. You know, it's like, hell, even her, she has a journal that, she said, they even have my journal. I was like, oh wow. She goes, yeah, I just started writing the journal, like a week or two prior. Just, you know, had never done one before. I just started it, and they freaking took it. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, what was it like? Was it like in a drawer or something? She goes, no, it was packed in a box, and they freaking have it. I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, well, don't worry, bud, we're gonna get back, you know. She goes, I know, it sucks. They have all my stuff. Yeah, no. I was like, I should have just had them stop where they were, you know, and not touch the upstairs or whatever was left. We would have just done the rest, and we would be missing some of our furniture, but we would have had all our boxes. We would have had all the boxes from upstairs. I think we'd still be missing like kitchen stuff, some kitchen stuff, because there's some of the kitchen stuff that they got after the fact that wasn't boxed up. I was boxing up like I think I put it like the air fryer and some other things like in boxes, because it wouldn't take stuff if it wasn't boxed up or in milk crates. They were like, well, if it's not boxed up, then we're gonna have to pack it, and then we're gonna charge you for it. I'm like, you guys have already trashed our place. You guys have already broken stuff. But so I was boxing up stuff, you know, in the kitchen, and then I would, you know, of course, tape it up, put it by the kitchen, the entrance to the kitchen, and then we come downstairs and those were gone. So they were anything that we boxed up and set up by the, you know, set them by the door. They were, you know, going ahead packing in the truck. So many things I look back now and go, oh man, like if I had just sent them away after that first half, actually the rest of that night probably wouldn't have been too bad, because you know, we had a hotel booked nearby. Me and my youngest, we were the ones that were there at the apartment dealing with the movers, while my wife and my oldest were with the grand kiddo and the cats at the hotel room. So me and my youngest would have gone over to the hotel room and basically, you know, gotten some sleep, and then probably just started taking care of stuff earlier the next day, because we left, like when we got the U-Haul, it was like 4 in the afternoon the next day, and that's when they were finally trying to call me. Like we were on our way back from the U-Haul place with the, you know, me and my wife in the U-Haul truck, her car on the trailer behind the truck, and then they were blowing up my phone. Like, yeah, we're trying to reach you, and I literally messaged back like, we don't need you anymore. Like, go ahead and head to the delivery location. We will see you there. But if we'd started, you know, So we started at like 4 p.m. We left Nashville like midnight. Like we got pretty much the apartment unloaded or loaded into the truck. And then, we stopped, got gas at the nearby Circle K, and took off, went like 130 miles away to a Drury Inn and Suites, and I had gone ahead and put a reservation in saying that we were going to get there late, but I knew they were pet friendly and stuff, so went ahead and, just had that planned. But if we had sent them away the night before and just maybe got a U-Haul first thing in the morning, we might have been out of there, a lot earlier and had an actual little bit better of a trip up here to Missouri, because we got to the hotel, I think, at like 3 in the morning, like 3 or 4. I think I got to bed at like 4 a.m. at that Drury Inn Suites, and they gave us till noon. I think the checkout was like 10:30, 11 o'clock or something. I think it was like 11 a.m. And I'd asked them, like, hey, like, what time's checkout? When we were checking in at 4, he goes, it's like 11, but I'll give you till like 12, 12:30. I'm like, all right, cool. We really appreciate that because we haven't slept much the last couple of days. It's been a rough 3 or 4 days this past week, so any extra sleep we could get would be great. Of course, my wife's still trying to get up. I think she tried to go down and get breakfast. So she slept for like 4 or 5 hours trying to go down and get breakfast, and I was like, yeah, screw that. I was like, don't get me wrong, I love hotel breakfast, especially when you can get like bacon, bacon, sausage, eggs, hash browns, whatever. Hell, even the waffles, But when you're getting in there at 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning or whatever, yeah, I'm like, nope, I'm gonna sleep. I will get something to eat afterwards. But we got up. I think we were still late checking out. I think we checked out like 12:45 because everybody finally got up at like noon, and we started packing everything back up, putting the cats back in their little travel backpacks. It's pretty awesome things. I didn't know those existed up until this past year. Where like there's backpacks that cats that we can travel in. They got little. You put them in there. They got a couple of openings for like fresh air, and then like one side of them is like clear so they can see out. You just zip them up in there and you carry them like on your back or whatever. But yeah, I mean, material things, obviously they're important, especially if it's like sentimental stuff. But in the grand scheme of things, it's like, yes, I'm stressed all the time about wondering how we're gonna get past the situation. Like, I have no idea. Like that's when I was leading to it, when I told my wife that I'm leading towards just trying to figure out how to pay the $8,400, get them to deliver our stuff, and then look into legal action, like filing a lawsuit against them in small claims court, either for a full refund or for at least try to basically get something out back from it because of the level of service, the issues we had, the fact that they there's multiple things they told us that ended up not happening, like we can do $2,000 $2,000 a night, and then the rest on delivery. It's like, oh cool, all right, and then once they're loaded, then all of a sudden it was actually they want $4,200, not negotiable. I'm like, well, that's not what the guy was telling me last night. Well, I'm sorry, sir. Okay. So, but and then the truck dimensions and all the stuff that really they have not been able to prove. They've sent me stuff. Yeah, it's a 30-foot truck. Okay, it's 30 foot, but it's shorter than a 26 foot. It's just as wide as 26 foot. Probably, I'm assuming, because trucks in general they might be shorter, but usually most trucks are about the same width. It's just the length and the height might be a little bit off. But I'd imagine anyway. So there's no way that their numbers actually add up as far as like, oh yeah, you used double the amount of room. No, I don't think we did. You can't so. But I'm mainly trying to brainstorm and figure out how I might be able to possibly come up with that. I might message the Attorney General and kind of give him an update. Like, yeah, I've been trying to email the company the past couple days. I have not gotten any replies. I might mention to him too, like, hey, I'm leaning toward just trying to figure out how I might go about getting them paid, just so that we can get our stuff, and then look into possible what legal options we have afterwards, like suing the company to try to recover, money back. The other option is basically that somebody says like, oh, you should pay them the initial, the $4,200 that they require for them just to transport it out to you. And then when they're there delivering, tell them that you're not going to pay the final thing until they've offloaded your stuff, and then basically tell them to go fuck themselves. Afterwards. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know if they would. I think they would require us to pay it before they would even start unloading. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of, we don't know exactly, so I don't know exactly what would happen in that situation. I even thought about too, like, I wish I had checks because I could email the company and be like, hey, I'll do what I did before, basically be like, hey, I'll just write a check to you and send you the photo with the front and back, whatever, and then just go ahead and schedule the thing, but yeah. So if anybody has any suggestions on any any sources, possible sources, possible options as far as like grants, anybody that in the state that does that or whatever that helps with any kind of stuff, as far as like trying to get a situation like this financially taken care of, just so that we can get our stuff. Feel free to drop me a line at blogshowpodcast@gmail.com. But yeah, I mean, it's rough because there are things that we really want back, things that are of high value to us. We're not hoarders. We don't. Yeah, we had a lot of stuff, but we actually donated quite a bit. We after 10 years living in the same place, there was we were able to go through. We had a couple loads in the truck bed. That like old toys of the grandkiddos. There were clothes that I've had over the years that like I went through and basically had probably about 4 or 5 big decent sized bags. That just clothes that either just didn't wear anymore. So I'm big on shorts, so it's like I had cargo pants that like technically were still okay, but I just hadn't worn them in forever. They were just packed away, and it's funny, like my youngest actually took 1 or 2 of my old. Plus, I'm a lot bigger. Those are from back when I was like, 30, 32 waist, waist and length size, whatever. And now I'm like, 300 pounds. Obviously like working on losing that, but. She actually took 2 of my pairs of cargo pants and like, because she has like sewing skills or whatever, she modified them a little bit. And I was like, are those my cargo pants? She's like, yep. I was like, wow, surprised they fit you. She was, I modified them slightly, so they now they fit really well. I'm like, oh, cool. I was like, well, I'm glad you're getting use out of them. She loves hand-me-downs, especially like from like old T-shirts of mine or whatever. That, because they're not. Since it's usually just pretty basic, so it's nothing like masculine or feminine about a lot of my stuff. It's just basic, like hell. It's like I'll have shirts that have Mario, or stuff like that. So all of a sudden, there's shirts from like when I was in basic training, and it showed like fire dogs or whatever, and flight, blah blah blah. When I was in basic training, whatever. She came out wearing that shirt. I was like, holy crap. I was like, I haven't seen that shirt in 20 years. She goes, yep, I found it, and I was like, it fits pretty well. I was small back then. She was so, but we gotta look at we gotta look at life. Try to think like subjectively, I think, and not necessarily focus on things that we don't have. I mean, obviously, like, we're not going to be able to, like, not think about it altogether. Like, we're obviously, it's always going to weigh at us until we get this crap figured out. But me trying to explain to my wife, like, well, I mean, I love it here. Like, I love the house. I think, like, even though, yeah, we've furnished our place with, like, rent-a-center, so we're paid weekly for the fact that we have at least 2 bedroom sets, 1 queen mattress and frame that basically I gave to my oldest, because she basically just had a futon mattress. And we actually got a bedroom, full bedroom set for my youngest because literally all her stuff is gone. So it's like, got her a bed, frame, mattress, side table dresser. You know, so she actually has actual furniture in her room. My grandkiddo, though, he's next on the list to try to furnish his room because he just has like he has one of those like toddler bed mattresses on the floor, and he has milk crates that have like his clothes and whatnot. So we're working on it. We're working on trying to like, you know, build back and, you know, come back from this and stuff. But until we can settle things with movers, obviously, like, things are gonna be pretty rough. But that plus, you know, like, I'm glad that, you know, because I'm out here working. My wife and my oldest are applying places and interviewing in places, and so far have not hit anything, but I know it'll happen. That's why I don't even care so much about that. It's the you know, feeling bad about the issue with the move and stuff like that. So my wife's like, I'm really sorry. Like, I feel horrible that I'm trying. I'm like, I don't care about that. I was like, it's fine. I was like, with my, you know, VA disability, in fact, you know, I'm working, I'm on a dedicated, so I'm literally working consistently, daily right now. Crossing fingers and hoping that what I'm doing right now for the past week or whatever, that basically it just keeps going, because I don't mind working 6 days if I'm doing consistent stuff. Like, if I'm having, I know what I'm doing every day, so it's not like I'm working 6 days and every day I'm just waiting to find out what I'm doing that night, because that sucks. I like to kind of be, that's why I was happy when I was on my Illinois run, you know, doing free for like a year and a half, whatever, going to Illinois and back, meeting up with the team from Minnesota. You know, shout out to Chuck and Joanne, if you guys are ones that are possibly tuning in to this podcast, which, if you are, feel free to send me a message and let me know, because I have no idea. all my stats show me is how many downloads I have, and it shows like, you had 11 downloads from the United States, 1 from Germany. So wherever you are from Germany, I really appreciate you, because it seems pretty consistent. You've been here for a while. Every so often, I see one from UK pop up. I've seen ones from Australia pop up. Hell, I even had one from like Nigeria or something, or Brazil, and I'm like, oh wow, okay. Just appreciate all of you guys that tune in every week. And, you know, if you like what you hear, definitely like and follow, tell your friends. Eventually, I'll get the website back up or at least get a link active, so that way people can support the show if they want to. Especially would be appreciated now because of the trying to figure out how to come up with like $8,400 to just pay them, get our stuff back, and then find them, because I kind of worry about trying to find them before we get our stuff, you know. So yeah, fun times. But you know how it is, guys. You know, it's like, all we can do is keep moving forward. All we can do is take it day by day, just try to do the best we can. And you know what, to kind of close out this episode, you know what I always say: keep on pushing forward, keep believing, believe you can, believe you will, and you're already halfway there. And then you just have to go out there and do it. And I have to take my own advice as well. Like, this is not just me trying to be all wise and whatever and give you guys, you know, some, hey guys, you know, like, just keep pushing forward, guys, just keep doing it, you know. It's like, I'm doing it myself. That's why it's like, see, me and my bro Ricco, you know, shout out Ricco. But me and my bro Ricco, we were chatting about the fact that I was mentioning about my mother-in-law. You know, love her to death, but there's certain things in life that kind of bug me a little bit. Like, if somebody's if somebody is not really hurting, and they're in a position to help. I'm not saying they have to, but if you're in a position to help, like, to actually help somebody take care of a really big problem, but, instead of doing what you can do, basically, because you don't want to, I don't want to take care of this for them, so basically you give advice, you give comments, you give suggestions. All right, that's great, but those comments and those suggestions, unless they take care of the bigger problem, are really not going to help much, I appreciate these suggestions and the comments and stuff, like the ideas or whatever. It's like, yeah, okay, thank you, I've already tried that, but and it's even like, and I'm not saying that I'm not saying that somebody, if they're in a position to help, that they have to. I actually approached her when I realized that all this financial issues, when we were dealing with the movers in general, I had kind of reached out to her and said, like, hey, like, here's what's going on, like the estimate just doubled. I was like, I know we don't have it, I don't know what we're gonna do, like, would you be willing to help? And we would actually, like, we could do it as a loan, or we could pay you so much back every month, like, $150 payment every, like, 3 weeks or whatever, until this balance is fully paid. It would take a little bit, but, like, would you be willing to? And basically I got, well, I mean, I would help if you guys had done such and such, you do this, whatever. It's like, but you would take care of this one thing, then we'll talk. And plus, like, you guys know how, like, there's things that, I'm always, like, I've got the podcast, I've got that daily passive Bitcoin mining that you guys see, the links are always in the show notes, that I'm not, I do think the things I do on the side, including this podcast, are with the intent to eventually grow them to the point of, being able to do those full time and not have to worry about the job. Be home with the kids, the wife, whatever, the grandkid. But, nobody should just settle unless you love your job and you want to do that for the rest of your life, whatever. If that's something that you guys, anybody that's in a job like that, where they're like, maybe they're working their butt off, but they're like, oh my God, but I'm so happy. This is what I've always wanted to do. I love it here. Like, okay, cool. That's great. Congratulations. Like, I'm happy for everybody who's in that situation. And as far as my, like, career wise, that's kind of where, I love to drive. I've always been really good at it, and doing what I do as a trucker, like, it's basically, it is my calling. But the hours, are insane sometimes. And, like, right now I'm working 6 days, and sleeping during the day, and basically I might see my fam a little bit before I leave to go back to work, and then, that night to go ahead and do it again, but really don't have a life. But, I gotta do what I gotta do. But my goal is to not have to work anywhere near as hard as I am. And so it's either I do stuff on the side to work on those future goals, or I just accept the fact that I'm just gonna do this, and, this is just life. And, eventually I'll just maybe I'll get to retirement age, maybe I'll have enough money to retire, whatever, just by doing the job, But I don't want, that's not what I want. I don't want to go the next 20 or 30 years doing what I'm currently doing and miss out on a bunch, like, never have time to actually enjoy life, So that's why I do the things on the side that I do. And one of the things my mother-in-law had commented on when I approached her, she goes, well, when I see, like, online, I see you post about these, like, Ponzi schemes and crypto scams that you're still investing in or whatever, and, and so, like, I just don't know. And plus, you haven't done such and such. And if you would do that, like, you submit this one form that this financial advice people had asked for, like, then we could talk, because you never turned that in. And I'm like, I understand where you're coming from, but we're trying to get out of this place tomorrow. Like, we're literally, they're literally loading the truck, and we're running into this issue right here, and, like, we're trying to get out, like, So, and then since we've been up here, basically all it's been is, suggestions, comments, recommendations, or whatever. So I've kind of blown her off a little bit. Like, I let my wife deal with her, and I'm like, I don't respond to most of the things she says in the chat that she created with me, her, and my wife. I'm just like, I'll let my wife kind of deal with that, because anytime I say anything anyway, I don't get a response anyway. So, so it's like, but It's like, it's one thing if like for me and Ricco, we were chatting about it. He goes, yeah, 'cause like when somebody is really well off and they're trying to give you financial advice, like, hey, you really need to do such and such with your money and whatever. And he's like, you're not in the same position I am, so like I really don't care what you think because like you don't have to worry about money. Like you're in a really good place. Like you can do whatever you want. You're good. Versus like if somebody, he's like, but if somebody like me or you, bro, or somebody else that like is kind of in a similar financial situation, um, but they found something that works, or they found like a saving source that actually they get really good interest on, or something that actually like that helps like sets the bar or sets it up a little bit. He's like, they'll say, hey, bro, oh my god, I found this, you should try this. Like I'm making such X amount over here, this like high interest or whatever, and I'm doing really well because of this. And you go, oh, cool. Or, you try stuff that like others that are kind of in your shoes or have been in your shoes. Like you kind of follow them a little bit more than you got somebody that actually is not hurt for a while, for a pretty long time, and they're like, well, like, you really should watch over here and do and change like this one spending habit, instead of doing this, you should do such and such, like, why are you doing this, whatever. It's like, look, like, I'm just trying to survive. Like, yes, we're trying to save, yes, we're trying to grow, and we're working towards stuff, but right now we're kind of in survival mode, especially right now for us, because of getting out here, not having our stuff, going to like a lot of our stuff that's with the boomers, stuff that technically had gone through Rent-A-Center myself for those bedroom sets anyway, and they recently had paid them off like within the past like 2 years, and so went through the weekly payments with those, and then got it paid off, and now we're back to $150 a week for to pay for everything that we've got, so doing what we gotta do, making the most out of it. What is that saying? Life gives you lemons. This depends on who you ask. So like the quote is, "When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade or whatever," right? My wife, when she would say, "Life hands you lemons," my wife will literally respond, "You make grape juice and throw everybody off." I was like, that's pretty good. So, but definitely one of those little pet peeves. You got people that could actually make a difference, but instead they'd rather just try to guide you. Hey, we should try this. Try that. None of the suggestions are gonna actually help you out of your situation. But it's like, all right. So that's why a lot of times I end up not asking for help, because I don't want to get judged. I don't want to have opinions thrown at me. And it's one thing if you ask, and like they say, well, I'm not gonna help you again, but I know you really need it, so here, I'll help you right now. I was like, oh, cool, thank you so much, really appreciate that. A lot of us out here, I'm not out here like driving, but like a lot of us in general would rather not ask for help. Like there are people out there, sadly, that they'd rather be permanently on food stamps, permanently on government assistance, and then they take pride in it. Like, hey, look at all this cash I got from the cash assistance from the government, and look, I've got like $1,500 in food stamps. Like, buying wedding cakes with it. Yes, that happens. My wife actually was a pastry chef, and at one point she worked at Publix, a grocery store in Nashville, and she was a cake decorator. And there were people that would come in there and buy wedding cakes, and it would be $800, $1,000 wedding cakes, and they would literally pay for the whole thing on food stamps. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. But then for a while, we it's one of those things where, like, even though we're bringing in decent money, but of course with Nashville cost of living, we were struggling, and they'd be like, well, sorry, you don't qualify for any assistance because you make too much money. It's like, oh, wow. Thankfully, we're actually on a little bit of assistance up here in Missouri right now, mainly because, first couple weeks before I started with the at the new hub, none of us were working, and so I reached out and kind of went ahead and filled out the application with Missouri, and basically went through the interview, sent them screenshots of like my VA benefits, and my daughter sent screenshots of like her monthly small child support check that she gets from the parents of the bio dad. Yeah, the parents pay the child support, not the not the bio dad. He lives at home, so. But always fun when the traffic lanes, you got like cones that are like halfway in the lane, so you have no choice but to be off to the side of the road, partway on the shoulder. It's like, can you guys put the cones over so we could actually like be in the lane? That would be awesome. But so went through that process, and so we got approved. They rushed out the EBT card, had a nice, decent sized balance on it for prorated for the first month, and gone up quite a bit for the upcoming months. It's one of those where, like, now I'm working, so now I'm gonna start getting decent paychecks, and the letters I got from the state basically it said like in like November they'll do like a review to see where we're at, blah blah blah, and I'm like, yeah, we'll probably like not have them anymore, but that's like 5 months. And I had specifically said to my wife and my kiddo when we're talking about this, and I was like, well, I mean, when I applied for this for us, I was applying as a temporary solution because I knew that we didn't have any money coming in. I know the food was pretty tight. Like we were, able to do little grocery trips here and there, $50 here, $100 here, but nothing like for a family of 5. We're just kind of scraping by. So it's one of those where like we're grateful for the temporary assistance, but gotta do what you gotta do, It's like, so keep pushing forward, guys, no matter what happens, no matter how negative things seem, no matter how bad it feels. Focus on what matters. Focus on the positive stuff. Your family, if you have a roof over your head, if you have food, have like transportation to get to your job, whatever, or if you have a job, and if you have transportation to get to your job, like clean water, all that stuff. There's so many things that we could be, that could be a lot worse. And I'm kind of trying to like steer my wife towards that a little bit because she's focusing on all the stuff that we don't have, all the stuff that we're lacking right now because of the the movers having it and stuff. So just keep focusing on but what is it? There's another saying. It's like it's like the serenity prayer. I believe it is like, Lord, help me to accept things that I cannot change. Help me to change the things that I can, and grant me the wisdom to be able to tell the difference between the two. Because there's no point in stressing, freaking out, dealing with like severe depression over all the things that we absolutely cannot change. We have no control over it. And yes, you still feel it, but you don't want to heavily focus on that. You want to focus on the things that you have control over, the things that you can do, the things that you can make different. And that's why I'm trying to look at whatever ways I can, whatever I can do to try to remedy the current situation. Whether it's figure out if I can get a loan or a grant or something to try to just pay them to get our stuff back, and then look at, okay, now let's take them to court and try to see if we can recover anything back, or just pay them and be like, you know what, walk away, cut our losses, just basically blast them everywhere online to spread the word about them. But hey, yeah, we paid them, but blah blah blah, But for me right now, I'm focused on, all right, I'm working consistently, I'm on a dedicated, and I have consistent paychecks coming in. Literally just enrolled since we got absorbed by the new company. You know, when I was WSI, they got bought out by who I'm currently employed with. We just literally got open enrollments kind of early because our coverage with the previous company, they canceled it. So we had Cobra for a month, and then I've been getting a message the past 2 weeks saying you need to sign up for benefits, blah blah blah. And I was like, I'm gonna, but time wise, I was just kind of slammed. But yesterday I went to go to sleep, and I got a text from payroll basically saying like you have till tonight at midnight because Cobra coverage ends, and if you don't, sign up, then you want to actually be covered. So I was like, well, crap. So I went on there and went ahead and filled everything out. Got me, my wife, and both my kids. I can't cover my grandkids, sadly. I might have been able to, but I didn't cover him because I know we could probably get him. I know we can get him covered with the state, and the kids being covered by the state is a hell of a lot better coverage than what I could probably give him through my work. So I think it would cover him 100% versus with me with my awesome, hey, here's your deductible you gotta pay. I'm like, okay. So filled everything out last night. Basically, supposedly it's active today, even though now I have to message my payroll. Basically, like, all right, so when do we get our cards? Or if we don't get physical cards for a while, like how do we access our benefits, like to go get prescriptions and stuff? Like, it's got to be like a virtual card. So that's what I'll be texting her about today. But anyway, guys, on that note, I know this has been longer than I thought, actually, because when I got to like 19 minutes, and I was like, I don't know what else to really talk about. I don't know how long this episode is going to be. And then, it just kind of kept going. So, but you guys keep pushing forward, keep believing, do what you gotta do. We got this, guys. Believe you can, believe you will, and we're already halfway there, and then just have to go out there and do it. But as always, I appreciate you being here and tuning in with me. Stay tuned for the next upcoming episode of Raw Chat. And then, like I said, next week, tune in. Next week's Raw Chat it'll feature myself, David Goldberg, his friend Miles, and his friend Janelle. Always a very, very animated conversation when we get all of us on there. One of these days, actually, I want to also get one of my coworkers, I guess, that drives for this company that my boss kind of connected me to on my first night. He works nights, and so he was like, yeah, if you have any problems, anytime throughout the night, call him because he's available, whatever. I was like, oh, cool, all right. So, and then, of course, he was like, hey, do you ever, like when he was dropping me off or guiding me to where the truck was, he's like, hey, do you ever get on phone calls in the middle of the night to stay awake? And I said, yeah. I was like, quite often. I have a buddy up in PA that I said, funny story, and I have a podcast that has, one of my episodes or one of my segments is Real Talk Tuesday, but also now I have Raw Chat where I connect with him and sometimes some of his friends that are also truckers, and we just shoot the shit, and it's recorded, and I don't edit it at all. It just ends up I just upload those conversations or whatever. I was like, it ends up being pretty cool, and he's like, that's pretty awesome. He's like, yeah, there's a couple guys that, me and a bunch of these other guys, whatever, we're often on the phone late at night. I said, well, if you guys don't mind ever being recorded and ending up on this one of these segments, I would totally, I can give you my Google Voice number, which is also connected with my regular, it connects to my regular cell phone number, so that way it's like, initially with just Google Voice, it was a learning experience. To record those Raw Chat episodes, me and Dave would kind of try it a lot, and then just using Google Voice, it uses data, but when I connected it to my cell service itself, now it's just connected, it'll ring through like it's calling me on my regular line, but then when I answer Dave's call, I'll get the to answer, press 1. And I'm like, oh, so that kind of tells me, okay, it's a Google Voice number versus like on my regular line, I'm gonna do that. And then I hit 4, and this call is being recorded. So fun times. But on that note, guys, I appreciate you being here. Sorry, sorry I rambled. But again, if anybody has any advice, any routes you think I should go in order to try to get this situation taken care of. Anybody wants to financially support the show, whatever, to maybe help us along towards that $8,400 goal. Feel free to drop me a line at watchshowpodcast@gmail.com. But on that note, I think I'll let you awesome people go, and I will talk to you on the next Real Talk Tuesday, which is the next week. But don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for Raw Chat coming up next. You guys have a good one. We'll talk to you then.